We are awaiting the commencement of the August 13th Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees meeting, which parents are waiting on bended knee to hear about the reopening plan and get some details tonight on what that's going to look like. How a typical day is going to look, how many hours in front of a computer for distance learning, what's it going to look like for the 3 schools. So hopefully we'll hear what their plan's going to be. There are a lot of things on the agenda tonight, a lot of different items. It's not just about the reopening of schools. And that does not come up until item 9. So we'll have to wait on that, it looks like. But it is a full agenda this evening. And we are awaiting any moment for the board meeting to officially start.
33. Mr. King, would you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Sure. Please rise. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
I will read the civility statement. When conducting district business, we will communicate clearly and concisely with respect for the time of others, listen objectively, carefully considering the opinions of others, understand the counterproductive effects of disruptive, demeaning, and intimidating behaviors, understand and respect district policies and procedures, and maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of others who have served in the past. We'll move on to item 5, public comments, recognition, and reports. I have one public comment to read into the record. Just for everyone's information, I also read this before the closed session, and I am going to go ahead and read it now, but then I'll call it up again on agenda item 9. It's from Tracy Costan. The document and draft for the reopening of schools is not published to view. How can we make a comment on an item that is not posted yet? If the board is taking action on this tonight, it should be available to view to give the public time to read it and comment if they choose to do so. Thank you. And again, that was from Tracy Costan. Do we have any other public comments this evening? All right. Moving ahead. Is there anything else on this item 5 agenda, Superintendent, that you need to address?
There's not.
Thank you. Correspondence, proposals, and reports. AATA representative. Do we have anything from the
Yes. Hi, guys. I was waiting to be unmuted. Thank you. It's Melissa. How's everybody? I hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to reach out and say that we have worked really hard over the last several weeks with our bargaining team and district bargaining team to come to a hopefully what can work agreement with our students coming back in a distance learning model. I know prepare to deliver instruction in a high quality way. So we're just looking forward to being back and reaching out and serving the district. So thank you.
Very good. We will be having a discussion about some of that later on in the meeting, and it will shed some light on some things. Moving on, CSEA representative. Thank you, Melissa. Nothing from CSEA representative. I believe the student representative of the board is now somewhere in another faraway land, and we'll be gaining a student representative soon, I hope. And moving on to D, the Superintendent Gold Standard Report, Larry.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone that's joining us tonight. I want to share a few different things. The first thing is I want to talk about, of course, the opening of our school year. I want to ensure that our students and families feel welcome. It's an odd time and an odd environment to return, but our staff, our administration, our teachers, our office staff, our custodians, everyone is pitching in to make it as warm a welcome back as we can. We need to think outside the box. We've certainly been told what we can't do by all these different entities, whether it's CDC, County Department of Public Health, the state, the governor, and so on and so forth, County Office of Education, recommendations of what we need to do to be in compliance, industry guidelines, and we've done our part. But including marking, 6 foot distancing, we have stickers on the ground, we have plexiglass at all campuses in the reception areas. We've done all the things that they've asked us to do, but now it's time to make sure that we do everything within our realm to make our students feel, again, welcome, make our families feel confident in the educational, instructional program that we're going to be offering, and that the social emotional needs of our students are met as well. On Tuesday, I visited campuses, and I'm proud to report office staff was present, smiling, even if it was with their eyes due to their wearing masks, and preparing for the start of the school year and assisting with registration. Our Professional Development Council met yesterday, which is combined of our teachers and administrators, to finalize our plans for the professional development prior to the start of the school year. Teachers will be providing technology and EduProtocol trainings. We're also planning to have Tech Tuesdays for 4 weeks, starting August 25th. Teachers who need tech support will have scheduled time from 3 to 4 p.m. And the next PD Council meeting is scheduled for September 3rd. Appreciate all the folks on that committee. We have representation from special education and at all 3 school sites, and with a variety of teaching levels and subject matter. So thank you to our administrative team and our teachers for working so quickly on that, and I can't wait to see what comes to fruition. At the last board meeting, we discussed the possibility of applying for a waiver that would allow in-person instruction to a limited amount of students for students in grades transitional kindergarten through 6th grade. At this time, the application is not available. As you recall at the last board meeting, I said it would be available potentially in a few days from that point. But at this time, because of the number of COVID cases in LA County, the waiver application is not an option for any local education agency in LA County. There must be a threshold met of positive cases per 100,000. Currently, I believe the positive cases is approximately 350 per 100,000, and that number must drop to a certain threshold before that waiver would become available, and then it needs to drop to even a lower threshold before we're allowed to return TK through 12th grade in a hybrid model. I'd like to extend my thanks to Kim Shaw, who put together the ability to attain a training that was very difficult to get into. So we have 5 administrators attending a training being put on by Doug Fisher. These institutes will provide clear pathways to being more intentional and purposeful as we begin to reopen schools. And in a book that they're all going to be receiving called based on Visible Learning Research, attendees will explore the implementation of distance learning teaching practices that focus on credibility, creating learning experiences that are meaningful, and feedback that increases impact. So I'm thanking our administrative team board for those 5 folks giving up a Saturday to attend that, and again, appreciate Ms. Shaw's effort in making that come to fruition. you can anticipate a report back from staff to the board on what their learnings were and next steps. Now I want to talk about specifically with school reopening. I want to clarify just points that we've already spoken about, but just to be absolutely clear, we are opening school on August 26th with 100% distance learning format. We have 2 items on tonight's agenda related to the opening of school. One is our reopening plan, and the second is our memorandum of understanding that we just did a tentative agreement and signatures on Friday, and so we'll discuss that a bit this evening as well. We also have homeschooling options for students. Parents have been calling, periodically during the summer asking about homeschooling options as they're considering all the possibilities for their particular student and what their particular needs are. At this time, I want to be clear that staff plans on making a recommendation to the Board of Education on a platform called Edgenuity, and we need to vote on that, but that's not on tonight's agenda. So I'm going to read something that would allow the board to entertain this evening. As I've shared at several board meetings now, the restrictions for the Brown Act have been lifted in many ways because of the COVID environment. This is called subsequent need. It's a government code, and it states the legislative body may act upon an item not appearing on a regular agenda upon the finding of 2/3 vote of the members present, or by unanimous vote if less than 2/3 but more than a quorum of members are present. That there is a need for immediate action, and the need for action came to the attention of the agency after the agenda was posted. And for a variety of reasons, that is the case this evening. So we were not able to post this 72 hours ahead of time, but we do have the contract information for you, board, and we would be happy to share that this evening if there is consensus to add this to tonight's agenda.
Do I have a motion to add the Ingenuity contract to tonight's agenda?
This is Mike Fox, I'll move that.
This is Brandon, I'll second.
Call the question.
Fox, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Ellie, aye.
Board members, 4, board president, aye, 5-0, your motion carries. Let's just make sure that when that item comes up that we discuss it thoroughly so anyone that joins us late can understand. Thank you.
Absolutely. My last comment is I'd just like to thank our principals and their staff for the work we're doing regarding registration. We've moved to an online registration format and platform. I know there's been some issues with that. Staff is available if you prefer to come and do that in person and pick up the paperwork. The first year is always a little bit tricky rolling that out in any district, but we'll certainly get there, and we're here to support you, families, with anything you need on that. And also with the Chromebook distribution, again, I want to thank staff for all their work on that. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing out there. Appreciate it. That concludes my comments.
All righty, making a note here. Are there any submissions, item E?
Ms. Ms. Pattison and Ms. David, I don't believe we have any. If I'm incorrect, you may chime in, but I don't believe we have any.
This is Miss David. No submissions tonight.
For the public, this is the area in which any charter that wants to make a submission for a new petition or a submission for material revision would announce that for discussion at a future board meeting. Moving on then, we'll go to board member comments, and I would like to start with immediate past president Mike Fox.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody back to school, so to speak. And I hope people were healthy over the summer, and that their businesses and their livelihoods were not too terribly impacted. Moving beyond that, in my 7 or 8 years on the board, we've never had to add something to the agenda that wasn't already posted, using that provision of state law. And I think that just kind of goes to show what kind of uncharted territory this crisis has got all of us in. And of course, I was very rapid to move it in because, frankly, every bit of data that we can get to parents is data that they deserve to have. And so, once that subject comes up, should it be approved, at least those people who are considering homeschooling will know the platform with which their child would be taught should they choose that option. The other thing I'd like to just briefly comment on is I appreciate the fact that Mr. King was unequivocal with stating that school starts August 26th with all the craziness. You know, obviously I get worried that word doesn't get out or students don't start, and that would, you know, obviously every minute of instruction is important in a regular format, and in a new format it's even more important. So August 26th is the day. I'm also appreciative of the fact that the superintendent was very clear in that, consistent with state and county regulations, school will be 100% virtual as we start the year. The part that we can't share tonight, and that I think that there's illusion, or maybe they will be a little bit later, is some of the details of a day in the life for that first day of school. And to that end, Ms. Trussell, our ADA rep, made reference. Everybody is working very hard to get all the ducks in a row. It's negotiated between the district and the union. Our teachers are our partners, and as soon as the ink is dry, we will make the plan available. Obviously, to the comment of Ms. Costin, it makes it hard to comment on it, especially because the ink is dry, and we understand that. And I think a good deal of time has been put in it by both administration and your teaching professionals. And I'm sure along the way, if we had to make adjustments, we could. I look forward to that coming out so people know what a day in the life is going to look like. And is it fair to say, Mr. King, that one way or another that'll come out Tuesday, given where we are today and the tools available to us?
You're exactly right. I anticipate no later than Tuesday close of business.
Okay. All right. Those are my comments. I'll just say I appreciate every parent's flexibility. You know, I'm still a parent, even though my kids aren't in K through 12 any longer. And I mean, in that context, I'm still rolling with the punches right along with you. Welcome back, teachers. Please stay safe and healthy, as well as our students and the rest of our staff. Thank you.
Mike, thank you very much. Brandon.
Good evening, everyone. First off, I want to say thank you to everyone who's been patient, stuck with the district, and everyone through this difficult time. The COVID-19 pandemic hasn't been easy for any of us, and it's definitely left a lot of things up in the air, so I truly appreciate all the patience and understanding. I'm really happy that school's going to be starting back up in the next 2 weeks, and thank you, Larry, for putting forward that we are going to be sticking with a 100% distance learning plan for the time being. I think it's really important to take every possible precaution to mitigate the possibility of exposure. So I appreciate us being able to take this time and look into every different safeguard we can put in place. Obviously, with LA County and the state's restrictions, it has made it very difficult for us to look into certain options for reopening and stuff like that. But I do want to thank Ms. Shaw and everyone that was involved in the reopening plan. I've had a chance to read it, and I can't wait for it to be shared with the public. I think it has a lot of really good steps, and I think it's going to put our district in a really good position for when we are able to reopen, as well as provide the best possible educational outcomes for our students and the best options for our parents. Beyond that, I just want to say welcome back to all our teachers, classified staff, our parents, our students. I'm really hoping this year goes through on a better note than the end of last year, and I hope soon we're going to be able to see everyone in person and our students are going to be getting back to a normal education. Thank you.
Coach Jorgensen.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad and hopeful everybody stays safe and well. I want to send out some shout outs to our staff and administration for their hard work in getting the paperwork, getting all these crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Got a lot of external sources that have been telling us what we can and can't do. However, I think that we're really quite fortunate being a small district in a unique community where we can adapt and respond to the needs of our students. In doing that, we can satisfy our parents. When I'm going through the paperwork that's been submitted in the attachments, I was looking there and I put my hat on as a teacher and I'm wondering how I would do this. So I want to shout out to our certificated personnel, all our teachers. I know that it's hard. I'm very appreciative of your work getting ready for distance learning. And the programs that I think that are going to work for us well will allow us that when that opportunity comes that we can go to a hybrid model that with minimal disruption we can transition and our students won't miss a step. Our staff will be able to make those adjustments to meet the needs of our students and satisfy our community and our parents. It's been a long road, it's been a difficult road, and unfortunately it's got a ways to go. I'm thankful that we are in that mindset that we have to do our part to mitigate this risk and mitigate this pandemic. We have a lot of issues that we have to touch that we're going to touch on as they can embed it, and teachers will embed in their lesson, and administrators will communicate with parents, and we'll answer the questions to the parents because transparency is of paramount importance. I'm just hopeful that everyone will continue to be that supportive and patience to let us move forward, let students get into this program. And because we're starting at the beginning of the year and we're not backpedaling, we have a chance to start in with a strong beginning. And then as things improve in our state, in our country, in our community, in LA County, when LA County starts to lift some of these restrictions because of active mitigation by the community, and our students will play a key role in that they can be part of the healing of this pandemic so that we can get back to normal and have the high level of education opportunities for all of our students from Meadowlark to High Desert to Vasquez. That's our hope, and I think that there's been a lot of work going into that. Thanks again to staff, thanks to the certificated, thanks for the classified, getting to the campuses, sanitizing, prepping. And then there's going to be something we forgot somewhere. Somebody's going to see something, but like Mr. King said, we need to think outside the box. We get a lot of guidelines, and then when we see something, that's where we're small and we can adapt and we can respond to the needs of our students and our parents to make sure that we can give them high quality education under these very challenging circumstances. All the best, everybody. Stay well and be safe.
Allie.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'll keep my comments short. Just like everyone said, welcoming everyone back. It's going to be an interesting new way to start the school year, especially if you have students transitioning from the elementary to the middle school to the high school this year. I'm very pleased with our school plan. Our staff has worked really hard. Melissa, Trisella, if you're on, I can't see all the participants. I just want to give a shout out to you, working with Mrs. Shaw with all the work that you guys have done. And if you are on, can you, or we have any teachers on, if you could please express my sincere gratitude for all the work that you guys have done, as well as the classified staff. I can tell you that as an educator, we started our second week of school, and it's been quite a interesting way to start the school year. So we could not do this without our great staff and our classified staff that is really does a lot of work. So I just want to express my gratitude for all of our hardworking people. And thank you, Mrs. Shaw, for all that you've done and giving up 2 Saturdays to our administrators. They're going to be participating in some professional learning over the next 2 Saturdays. So thank you for getting that going and getting that ready. So thank you for that. And I'm really excited about the professional learning that our teachers and Mr. Shaw has put together for our teachers coming back to start off the school year. I think that is sounds like it's just some really great professional learning that they're going to be participating in, and very useful professional learning that they're going to be participating in. So thank you for that. And on Tuesday, the schedules will be out, and I think that's going to really put some people at ease, knowing what their students are going to be doing, and for the teachers going to be knowing what their schedules are going to be doing. And I get to be on a lot of calls with the county every week, and I can tell you that we're in a good place, you guys, because I can tell you that that's what comes up in all the county calls. So thank you to our staff that's been working on all those things, because that has really been what's been holding a lot of other districts back. And so thank you for getting that together. And so I'm looking forward to getting that out to our community on Tuesday. So thanks to our staff. And thanks for our parents for all that you do and being supportive. And this will be definitely a new way to start the school year. And it will be definitely a year that we will not forget. Between all of the stuff that we've put up with this year, we thought the power outages were something we wouldn't forget. Well, we forgot about the power outages back in the fall. We don't even remember that. So this is definitely something that we're not going to forget. So a big shout out to our students. We'll take really good care of them. Parents, we're here for you, and we'll get through this together, because this will definitely be a new way of starting our school year. So thank you. And this will be our last board meeting, because the next board meeting we have will be the day after we start our school year. So we look forward to seeing you and being here for you. And a big shout out to our students, and start getting them up for school, because it's not like it was in the spring where we just kind of plug along, because this is actually school starting in a regular school day. So start setting those alarm clocks and start easing them back into getting up for school every morning. So especially if you have teenagers. So we ask that you start getting them up and ready for school in the mornings, and start transitioning them out of those summer hours. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kelly, and board members.
Can I just say one more thing? I forgot to say one thing. I'm sorry. For those of you that have been in the community for a long time, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Wendy Barnes is moving. She sold her house, and she will be leaving our community. So if you have a chance, she'll be leaving. So I know that we appreciate a lot of stuff that she's done for our community, has lived here for many years. So if you know Wendy Barnes, she's leaving. So you have a chance to say goodbye.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, board members. I'm going to have a little bit to say about the return to school plan and the agreement here in a little bit. So I'm going to hold my comments and make them pretty brief. The one thing that we have not talked about tonight, and I don't expect we'll be talking too much about on the dais, is there's an election coming, and both at my work and on occasion here in the past, I've seen where people think that the dais is a place to campaign. There will be no campaigning from this dais while I'm the board president. Also, the chat room and the public comment area is not a place to conduct your election activity, so I'll keep my eyes up on that. What I will say is this, and I give this advice, you go to civility statement, there's a part of it that says, understand and respect district policies, procedures. And being critical and outspoken is certainly a very important part of the democratic process. But when you're doing that, remember, if the day comes when you're sitting up here, the days of being critical and pointing out problems will suddenly become the day where you are expected to build consensus and solve some of those problems. So we can always get better up here, and the people that have served up here from going back into, I think, the late 1800s, we're just people, and whoever's going to be up here, we would certainly welcome you. But put your time into understanding district policies, because and the limitations of things and the rules about things. There's many laws and things, and don't find yourself going into the back room at the first closed session and discovering that everything that you've said is kind of like the way it is. So that said, I want to be really clear. I don't care who sits up in the other chairs. I sit in this chair right now, and that's hard enough for me. So I won't be endorsing anyone, and I don't expect anyone else up here would do that either openly or in a veiled manner. So I would like to say, though, everyone that decided to throw their hat in the ring on this election, congratulations to you, and I very much appreciate your ability to serve the community. My last message right now is to the parent groups, and I'm talking about the PTO, the boosters, and the PTSO. Guys, you've spent the last couple of years developing a very positive environment and a measurable environment. You've communicated that you are supportive of our staff, our administration, our teachers, and everyone. And right now, there are so many people out there that are wondering what they're going to do at home, how they're going to create a positive learning environment at home. And they're just really stressed out about it. And I know that you all have great ideas, and never underestimate that. So guys, in the parent groups right now, if there's a time for you to kick it in to support the district, and especially each other, please do that right now. We need you so badly. That concludes my comments for this evening. Thank you. Moving along to the regular agenda. We have a consent agenda. Before I ask that it be moved in, Larry, is there anything on the consent agenda that you need to modify?
The only thing I've asked the board to consider pulling is 8I Chromebook purchase.
Let's, guys, if you'll support me in this, let's pull that off for separate discussion. Board members, is there anything that you would like pulled off of any of these items? Hearing nothing, so what we will do is we'll be voting on items B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, K, L, I believe that is it. Do I have a motion to move the consent agenda in as read?
This is Mike Fox. I'll move it in as it's been modified and as the president read it.
This is Brandon, I'll second.
Call the question.
Fox, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board members for, board president, I, 5-0. Larry, can you introduce item I?
Okay, so item I has to do with Chromebook purchase, and I want to explain a couple of things on this item besides the change. The change is simply the total amount on the grand total board. When you look at your attachment, it says $118,000 approximately, and so we're going to change that grand total to read $125,186.10, and I'm going to say not to exceed $130,000, where I believe it says currently there's a not to exceed amount, I believe. It's $120,000 under the public content. So there's two adjustments there. Beyond that, the explanation for this Chromebook purchase is that right now, as you can imagine, the supply and demand for Chromebooks is causing a delay, and there's back orders. And the reason that there's so many orders going in for Chromebooks is many districts were not at 1-to-1 as we were fortunate enough to be last school year. Now beyond that, most school districts, or many school districts like us, are purchasing an additional amount of Chromebooks so that there's the ability for students who need them at home to have one at home. And as we progress towards the hybrid model, they would also have one at school. And so that reduces the risk of cross-contamination and that sort of thing, and also damaging the Chromebooks themselves and going back and forth. to school. So that's the reason for the additional expenditure.
I do have one question there, if that's okay.
Of course.
What funding source are we using for the Chromebooks?
I have Miss David on the line. I'm not sure if we're using our mitigation loss funds or not. I believe we are, but I'm not positive. Miss David?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if we're using that funding source.
Yeah, we are planning on using the learning loss mitigation funding, which needs to be expended for very specific purposes to support distance learning and learning loss mitigation. And it needs to be expended by December, so we do anticipate using specifically those funds to make these purchases.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much.
Let's move back to the other board members. Mike, Brandon, Tim, do you have anything?
Fox has no questions.
I don't have anything. I just want to say thank you, Larry, for explaining the reasoning behind picking up the extra set.
My question was answered about the LLMF funds, but we're going to use that as funds.
Okay, my understanding of some of these purchases is that there are governmental piggyback contracts. So, for example, you may be able to buy a certain model of a playground piece of equipment guaranteed at a price by another district or governmental agencies that negotiated that price. So I believe this is part of a piggyback agreement. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so sometimes what happens, those piggyback agreements is that the entity that's supplying the stuff has X number of units at that price, and then when they're depleted because everybody's buying them at a cheaper price, and sometimes the price goes up, and I think that this price increase, it's marginal and nominal. I'm being so vaguely unclear here, but anyway, so the moral of the story is we've got the Chromebooks that we need to supply our kids, and it's also my understanding that we've had pretty good participation in the survey that went out about the technological needs that our students have.
No.
Yeah. Yes, good, I'm done, thank you. So I believe we need to vote on this item now, call the question.
Mike, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Sure.
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, President I, 5-0. Thank you. All right, I believe that we are moving on to now item 9A, Gold Standard Instruction Delivery Models Draft Reopening Schools. Before the introduction, I'm going to read this one more time. Public comment regarding 9A from Tracy Costan. The document / draft for reopening schools not published to view. How can we make a comment on an item that is not posted yet? If the board is taking action on this tonight, it should be available to view to give public time to read it and comment if they choose to do so. Thank you. That's the end of the comment. Now, I would hope that somewhere along the line in either the board discussion or the superintendent's introduction, we could touch on this question.
And absolutely. So I'm going to introduce the item, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Shaw to kind of just give an overview of at least some of the topics that are in the document so the public understands it. And I want to preface it by stating that the majority of items in the document are things that we've already discussed publicly for some time now. So it was just a way to consolidate them in one document. And as we've been gathering questions from the public, we did put together a section in it on frequently asked questions or FAQs that's about 3 pages in length to address some of the common items that come up. But let me just state that the instructional models in this plan currently are samples. So the board has that in front of them. The reason they're samples and labeled as such is because on a subsequent item coming up on tonight's agenda is item 10B, which is the memorandum of understanding between Ada and the district. And that's really the trigger to pulling the samples out of the reopening document inserting them with the actual instructional models that were agreed upon tentatively with negotiations last Friday, August 7th. So because of that tentative agreement and the fact that the reopening document is contingent upon the MOU, at least in part, we want to honor the time that both parties, both management and Ada, put into the negotiations process. And there's administrative pieces that the Acton Adult Teachers Association has to perform following that tentative agreement. And so we want to allow them, as part of their normal part of the negotiation process, including but not limited to voting on and ratifying the agreement, and then working in conjunction with the California Teacher Association entity that's above that. So that's a normal operation procedure that's in place. And due to COVID, they did need some extra time in order to go through that process. So I just want to echo the board's comments and Ms. Shaw's comments to me, just thanking both parties for working diligently at the table to bring this, to bring that to us. And that's the rationale as to why those documents are not attached for public viewing at this time. We anticipate that the district will publicly share the reopening plan, as stated earlier, including the specific instructional models for distance learning, no later than Tuesday, August 18th, close of business. In the meantime, as stated earlier, we are beginning school with 100% distance learning on August 26th. We will have a homeschooling option available pending the recommendation, as you heard earlier, from staff to the board this evening. School offices are currently open. They're helping out families and parents with registration. As I stated earlier, again, I just want to thank staff for the time they put into the development of the reopening plan. It took a lot of work to put that together. At this time, I'm just going to turn it over to Ms. Shaw to share any highlights of the plan, so at least we can state kind of the areas that are covered in the plan.
Before we move ahead, board members, let's get through the staff report, and I'm going to open it up to each of you in order to hear your important comments. So let's just hold off until that. Ms. Shaw, go ahead, please.
Good evening, Board President and fellow board members. Parents, I just want to briefly tell you what the different sections of the plan are, and then welcome to take comments and from the board members. The first area is just a letter from Mr. King. The second area is health and safety, operations, social emotional support systems, family and community engagement, then the instructional piece, information technology, and important dates, frequently asked questions. So those are the areas that we've covered in the plan. And that's, it's about 20 pages. So we've covered all those areas, and so hopefully that'll answer a lot of questions that people have and cover all the information people have been anticipating. And I'd also like to thank Melissa and Ada, and also Lynn and Yolanda and all of us that worked really hard to get this put together. So thank you.
Larry?
That concludes our comments. We're ready for board comments or questions.
Mike, please.
Yes. I'm sorry. A quick question. The document has, if it's the same one I've seen as a board member, the document has specific bell schedules, if you were, in it, what a day looks like specifically? That's
Yes.
correct? Okay. So I understand to anyone sitting out there that a reading of the table of contents is less than satisfying. I mean, of course. And we will get you the document no later than Tuesday when, it's a negotiated document, certain elements, as we said, And as soon as we can get it into your hands, we'll get it into your hands. And everybody's working as quickly as they can, not just to develop it, but now that it's developed, to get all the ink on all the paper that's required so we can release it. So I look forward to Tuesday, when Tuesday close of business, no later than, when everybody can at least see what that day's gonna look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Brandon.
Sorry about that. First off, I want to say thank you to Ms. Shaw, AATA, our COVID task force, for all the hard work and the diligence they've put into creating this plan and truly being ahead of the curve when it comes to assessing the requirements that were put forth by both the county and the state. One of the big things I really appreciate is the engagement protocols that are in it and the representation of the different demographics. So truly thank you guys. I can't wait for this to be put out publicly. I think it's definitely going to contribute to the opening of our school and to the success of us mitigating the possibility of spread and infection. Thank you, guys.
Kim.
Hi, Kim. I have a couple of questions that I've written down as I reviewed the document. If you can clarify for me. Page 6, we're talking about.
Tim.
Yes.
We're not going to be discussing the document per se or the contents of it, please. I mean, general comments and questions, please welcome those. But again, part of this is we've got a document that's still being negotiated and voted upon. So please, general questions, anything that we can do to enlighten things. Mike had some awesome examples. Thank you. Kim, I'm going to come back to you in a couple minutes. Kelly.
No, I just want to once again thank everyone because I think the document looks great, and I think everyone will be pleased. And I just want to thank everyone's hard work. It definitely took a lot of team effort in a short amount of time, and I just want to say again, short amount of time. This is a lot of work in a very short amount of time. It may not seem like that to a lot of people, but behind the scenes, this is a lot of work in a very short amount of time. So thank you very much.
Okay, before I go back to Tim, I'm going to hold my comments on this item that kind of it's going to tie back into the board policy about distance learning. I'm not so concerned about who's doing what because I think we none of us would be here if our teachers weren't delivering the services that we need them to deliver. This is a market that we choose and there are other options. So I'm going to hold my comments until we talk about the distance learning board policy. And now I'm going to loop this back to Tim. Okay, I think there's going to be other opportunities here when it comes to the next section. So that said, I may have not gotten a motion on this. I did. Okay. Okay, so do I have a motion that we recommend that the board approve the gold standard instructional delivery models draft reopening of schools? And to be very clear upon that, what we are voting on is the draft that is still being ratified. And as soon as the ratification takes place, that document will be made available to the public in its entirety. Do I have a motion for that, please? You know what? I'll move that this happens. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Ken. This is Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Call to question.
This is Mike. Aye.
Brandon, aye.
Tim? Kelly, aye.
Was Tim and I, or,
I think he's having trouble.
yes? Yeah, we were having trouble hearing his comments. There's a technical issue. I'm going to vote aye. Tim, can you hear us? Okay, so here's how we'll do this. There's a quorum here, so there's 4 that have voted aye. We don't know if Tim was going to vote something else, he'll make that apparent to the superintendent's office. It will be carried in the minutes that we will vote upon it next time. So 4-0, and we'll call another one technical difficulties. Your motion passes, Larry. Thank you. Is that Tim? Okay.
There he is.
Is that Tim? Tim, can you hear what was going on?
Yes, I voted aye.
Good, so let's modify that vote. It's 5-0, unanimous, that the board approves the gold standard instructional delivery models. Specifically, the board policy addresses emergency schedules, working remotely, independent study, curriculum, courses of development, professional development. There's a non-discrimination clause. There's a piece on IEPs or individual education programs, education for English learners. Technology is addressed in here as well. Student use of technology is addressed in this board policy. And these are things that are important to our staff and our teachers as well. So this is an important document that we just want to make sure that we're keeping our board policy and administrative regulations current. And this is triggered by COVID basically, and how we're responding to things. That's correct. Okay, I'm going to cycle through the board, and Tim, I think this may be a great place for some of the questions. Let's start with Mike.
Yep. Mr. Superintendent, so clearly the fact that this document's here means that this document isn't per se subject to the negotiated items, whereas the other 2 documents are. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this document has been available so everybody can look at it?
That's right. That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Brandon.
I have no questions.
Tim. Tim, do you have questions?
No question.
Thank you. Kelly?
I have no questions, thank you.
I have no questions. Call the question?
Mike, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Two, aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, board president, aye, 5-0, that carries. Can we move in item C, student handbooks? Motion, please.
So moved. This is Mike.
This is Brandon, I'll second.
Okay, Larry?
So I'm going to ask Ms. Shaw just a moment to comment on this, and she may have principals make comments as well. But the student handbooks are important, especially during this time. Staff, teachers specifically want to know that there's accountability measures in place for students, and so this is important. It's important that people explicitly understand disciplinary pieces of the student handbook. Important that they understand grading policies, practices for the school district with regard to students, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shaw at this point.
Thank you. Each of the principals are on the call just in case you have any questions specifically for a school, but the handbooks have all been updated for the new school year. The only things that are not included are the infamous schedules and anything pertinent to perhaps if they list new personnel. But everything else has been updated and we're just waiting to put in the new schedules. So Tess or David or Matt, do you have anything specific you'd like to say about your handbook?
This is Tess. I don't at this time unless anybody has questions.
This is David, same. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Same for Matt. If there's anything you guys have questions about, please let us know.
Let's start with Mike, please.
No, I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
After 8 years, you have no questions about the student handbook. Sorry, Mike. Brandon.
I have no questions. Just thank you guys for the depth of these handbooks. They're fantastic.
Tim.
Interesting reading, no question.
I think you wrote some of these 20 years ago. Thank you, Tim. Kelly.
I have no questions, thank you. Thanks, guys.
And believe it or not, I have no questions other than we know that the schedules will be updated and the stuff gets posted online once the schedule becomes available. Call the question.
Mike, aye.
Of all the site handbooks, student handbooks, Mike is an aye.
Brandon, aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board members 4, board president aye, 5-0. Now we're moving into the personnel area. Do I have a motion for the music lead job description, please?
This is Brandon. I'll make the motion.
This is Kelly, I second.
Larry?
Thank you. This is really important, board. This is a lot of work that went into the not just the job description, but working with ASMO over the course of the past year. Appreciate the efforts of ASMO. They were very supportive in this effort, as was CSEA, the Classified School Employee Association, as well as the school principal, Ms. Toledo. And I want to thank Ms. Shaw, who worked very hard at bringing this forward as a recommendation to myself, and here we are bringing it to you this evening. There's a memorandum of understanding regarding the job title and job description that's here before you this evening. And we're proud to say that we have a verbal agreement with CSEA on it, so this position would become part of CSEA's unit. Just to clarify and remind the board that this position is new and further solidifies our partnership with ASMO. With your approval, we'll be in compliance with the law and position control because the law has changed regarding independent contractors in public sectors. So this puts us in compliance with that piece. And just again to remind the board, this position at this time is being fully funded by ASMO, which again, I can't thank them enough for all of their efforts. And that concludes my comments. Ms. Shaw is here if there's any further questions as well.
Board members, questions?
No, just, I have no questions on it per se. I'll just say that long before I was a board member, my wife was a volunteer. She was the treasurer for ASMO. As a private citizen, I helped write a grant where my employer provided a sizable grant to ASMO years ago. And so I'm glad that, you know, we've been able to negotiate the changes in the law with ASMO, with our union, and everything else so that this relationship, a very fruitful relationship that was started by wonderful people long ago, can continue forward. And so I'm really glad about that.
Thank you, Mike. Any other board members?
This is Brandon. I'm really happy to see our involvement with ASMO and the agreements we're coming to. I think, honestly, this is a fantastic position to have. I think it's going to be really beneficial for our students. So thank you for that. I'm so happy we were able to navigate through the different issues allowing for a position like this to be created.
Tim,
No questions, thank you.
Kelly,
Well, I'm just always excited to have the music in schools. I've always been a fan of ASMO. That's one of my favorite things, to go down to Meadowlark and hear the music. So that's one of the things I'm not going to like about distance learning, is that we can't listen to ASMO. So I'll be excited to get back to normal so we can see that music program. So I'm really excited about this position. So thanks, Kim, for doing all that work, and I'm excited to get this position going. So thanks, everyone.
and this ASMO position, ASMO itself, this is another one of those things that right now, it's real easy for these auxiliary groups to kind of be in limbo, not knowing where we're at. We're not at the campus. We're not doing this kind of thing. And this is a time when your creativity and your support of the community is really, really important. So figure out what you can do to make something happen, whether it's online or what it is, and keep this going. Sandy Madsen did so much for our community, starting with this as an example. So I appreciate the support ASMO gives the district. Now we'll move into item B, memorandum.
Well,
I need to vote on this to be, thank you, Mike.
okay.
Call the question.
Mike, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Kim?
Yeah, all right.
Kelly?
Hi.
Board 4, Board President, I 5-0. Congratulations, ASMO. Now we'll move into B, Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between AAD, USD, and AATA. Will someone move this in?
This is Brandon. I'll make a motion.
I will second the motion. Larry?
Thank you. So again, just want to reiterate that a lot of work went into this memorandum of understanding. It contains a lot of information about protecting our teachers and providing guidance and agreement with regard to what instruction looks like in the classroom. But we want to remember that we still want our teachers to have autonomy in the classroom. And so just like when you're visiting a classroom and you walk through, a 6th grade classroom can look very different going door to door, same with 5th grade, and perhaps 2 math teachers teach differently in middle school or high school. So you want that degree of autonomy and trust and professionalism among our teaching staff. And by the same token, we want to provide for the public some parameters that you know that you can count on with regard to schedules, for example, and those sorts of things. So the only point I'm going to reiterate is that board, you're approving this recommendation pending the ratification and voting procedures of ADA, which we again anticipate being done by Monday, as I understand it, possibly Tuesday. And that's why we keep saying that we anticipate putting this out to the public, the reopening plan, that is, by close of business on Tuesday. I also want to make mention, though, that this is not a, I want to be very explicit about it, it's not a pressure tactic in any way towards our teachers. I just want to be absolutely clear about that. And that's one of the reasons that we don't publicize it beforehand, because they need time to have their unit members look at it, understand it, read it, and that's good faith bargaining. And we want to have that practice and that relationship with our association. And so I just wanted to make sure to state that for public edification. And again, appreciate all the work done at the bargaining table. So thank you.
So we'll go to board member comments on this. Remember, guys, we're not going to discuss the intimacies of the contract. Mike?
Yes, I just want to be very explicit that we're approving it pending, pending once again, Mr. King?
That's correct.
Pending ratification by the union?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have no problem doing that.
Brandon?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Tim? Kelly?
Nothing. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to make a couple comments, and here I'm going to stay out of trouble. You might have noticed the last few board meetings that we have been very careful not to introduce our opinions about what's going to happen, why it would happen, and all that kind of thing. And I'm very happy we did. We've got this COVID industry guidance school program, and I don't think any of us are in charge of Cal, OSHA. I used to hate when these people came around when I was a crane operator or something, but there's some standards out there from oversight agencies that a lot of this is put in place. Some of them are very solid and predictable. Other ones have been fluid and dynamic. So here is what I'm going to say. I'm a facilities person, and what that means to me is there's something that needs to be done. There's a budget that tells you what you're going to pay for, a unit price, a frequency, or some measurables that say this is what's going on. So when it comes to the facilities and how they're treated, I'm going to be focused on the frequencies and efficiencies that are gained when people know we're not supposed to be in the building. The people that are in the building are going to be in the building. And a good example of frequencies is now all of a sudden things get cleaned every 5 minutes. In some cases, you hear see somebody speaking on television, there's somebody up there wiping everything down. So it asks everybody to be cognizant of the fact that if a room is closed and there's no one in there, let's not introduce things, and let's keep our campuses right and tight. And that way, we're not, I don't expect to see pets and people that aren't signed into the office and things like that there. Other than that, I think this is a no-brainer, and I think we've had good control of our campuses for years and years. Now the teachers, I will say this about the teachers. I've often wondered how a teacher can look at 20 or even 30 faces in a room and kind of gauge who's getting it, who's not getting it, who's the behavioral problem, how the smart kid that's getting it doesn't get bored, and they use body language, and they're processing this and moving the material and curriculum ahead in a way where everybody benefits. Now imagine you do something for years and you've got all these tricks and these little nuances that you're familiar with that make you effective, on top of the fact that you made yourself credentialed and confident in your work area, and then suddenly somebody comes along and turns the whole thing upside down, and you're expected to just overnight agree to something where you're kind of wondering, how am I going to make this work? Well, what it's going to look like is, now instead of having the kids in the room where you can look at them, you can get your magnifying glass out and look at the screen that we're looking at and see all these little faces and try to read and gauge what they got going on. And I don't think that's fair to expect that would happen overnight, especially when you've got oversight agencies being very dynamic in some of the stuff that they're throwing up. And some of the guidance manuals and the templates that some districts were depending on to get this stuff rolled out in a timely manner weren't forthcoming at the rate it was supposed to. So it's no surprise to me that professionals who want to agree to a measurable means of educating our kids in a way they have done it in the past very successfully, that everything doesn't line up. And I very much appreciate parents. I know it's frustrating not to be able to go buy 10 glue sticks at the last minute. And that's part of a ritual, and our rituals have been broken up. But teachers, I very much appreciate you, and facility staff. But once this is all over, one thing that I'm going to be focused on, and I tie into some weird stuff every once in a while, but I notice in the virtual environment there's a chat area or a side area, and I think that's where a lot of support needs are going to be coming up. And that's where resources pop up, where this kid's not getting it, he's raising his hand, the disruptive kid is over there. So I'm kind of looking at, and it kind of makes me wonder how a teacher delivers effective education in a way where they move it ahead, pace it for the benefit of the entire class, keep everybody engaged, and still monitor what's going on in the background. So I think the support and the resources that we're going to need to make this all work, there's going to be some challenges there. But other than that, I don't see any huge problem here. Our teachers have done it in the past, and they'll do it again this time. Thank you for your patience in my comments. That's what I have. I'll loop around one more time if somebody needs to say something else. Hearing nothing.
Nothing further from Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Call the question.
Aye.
Brandon, aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, Board President, I 5-0. We look forward to seeing, hopefully that this is ratified and that we will release the information to the public dispensal patient on Tuesday. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Can someone move in resolution 20-21.01, options for use material revision?
This is Brandon, I'll second.
Larry?
Okay, so this is a reminder to the public and the board. This goes back to the end of the school year, board. Because there's a requirement of 15 days between the hearing, and that's a fairly new requirement, and the action, that's the reason that there was some distance in there. So you have it before you tonight. We've discussed it previously, and so the staff recommendation is to approve the material revision. The legal opinion letter is attached in the executive content, and the public content, you have the material revision resolution. We have Ms. David and Ms. Patterson online if there's any questions from the board.
Before seeking board questions, I think you'll see on your agenda that there are very specific things about why they asked for this material revision on some clarification of some things. Some of them actually outside of the requirements of what someone would need to file a material revision. That said, let's run down the line for comments or questions. Mike?
No. As Mr. King said, I recall discussing this in its presentation prior to the summer hiatus of the board.
Brandon?
I have nothing on my end, thanks.
Tim?
Larry, one clarification. I read there's something referring to that they had some difficulty with their 3% reserve, and that's been resolved?
Well, to be honest, that would be the board shouldn't entertain that as part of this, so it's a separate piece, but that is an accurate comment. It is, and it is not been resolved. We're working with that organization.
I have no comment.
Kelly?
I have no comments.
All right, my comment on options for youth material revision. Yes, this is something where they are, it appears that they're restructuring some of their back of house services, in which there can be some efficiencies gained. I applaud the fact that they would bring this forward as a material revision, even though it isn't specifically required. You usually see material revisions drop in student counts, change of names, change of location, changes of district boundaries. There's none of that in here, and it says within the agenda exactly what it is. But I will join Tim in expressing that we are always cognizant of of the charter's ability to maintain its financial stability, which has a direct connection to the quality of education. When you start losing funds, you start losing other things, and among them, educational quality generally. So that's just a general comment. Tim, thank you for your comment. And that said, I believe we're ready to call to question.
Aye. This is Mike.
This is Brandon, aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, Board President, I 5-0. 45-day revision budget. Will someone move this in?
You know what, you have to, board, you have to refresh your screen, and that is where we put in the item we added, the Edgenuity contract. So it'll be under, it now goes A, B, C, D, E.
I will move in the Edgenuity contract. Mike, can you second that, please?
Second.
All right, go ahead, Larry.
Okay, so the cost for the K-5 Edgenuity platform is $9,095 for the site license, which covers access for up to 100 students for over 2 semesters. It allows for a full year of access for up to 50 students. The cost also includes web-based professional development and setup. The pricing for Edgenuity platform for grades 6 through 12 is $1,500 per student per semester, with access for up to 50 students, resulting in a cost that will not exceed $150,000. The cost also includes web-based professional development and setup. And again, these costs are being incurred by our mitigation instructional loss fund. The other piece I want to share is that we do have staff available if the board has specific questions about how and why this platform was selected. But I appreciate staff's work on preparing this and taking a look at that.
I think we'll move right to board member comments. Mike, please.
I am curious why in particular this platform?
Hey, Ms. Shaw, do you want either yourself or Dr. Allison, either one?
Well, I can answer that. When we were looking, this is one that had everything all in one package that we could do everything, and it provided an instructor also, so the parent doesn't have to do everything by themselves. They can communicate with the teacher that comes with the program.
Thank you. I understand it's turnkey. And
yes.
Trying to set up a program, give parents a choice at the last moment. Turnkey is helpful. Thank you. No questions from Mike.
Brandon.
I have no questions. I just want to say thank you guys for pursuing the best possible option.
Tim.
Not sure I can answer question. Is there the crossover of our teachers working with this program in addition to their classroom instruction?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Like one of our teachers working with their class of students and then having to do work with the homeschool program?
Yes.
No.
So the teacher that the program provides is going to be the contact point for the parents?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Kim, I'm just curious, I see professional development on here. So if it's turnkey, who's doing the professional development and what are they teaching?
There's a K-5 component that comes with webinars for the K-5 teacher that would be supporting that program. And then in the 6-12, there's a professional development that would, in case, like I was talking about with the attendance, it's not attendance that we would have to take for them. It's if there does become any kind of issues with a student not participating.
Say that there are a great number of needs that might look differently amongst the parents right now based on their work schedules and all that type of thing. And that this is a means of supplying the demand if it exists.
Yeah.
In the short period of time before school starts.
Yes.
That would be accurate.
Yes.
I know what I'm a proponent of, but I'm certainly not going to air that out right now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's called a question.
I'm sorry, I just have one follow-up because I think we got there almost, and I think my understanding is correct. Ms. Shaw, you talked about, depending on enrollment numbers and the relative enrollment between the homeschool option and the new normal school for this opening, which is the distance learning, there may be discussions of assignments. But it's not an expectation that a teacher will be assigned to both as part of their normal duties.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, they wouldn't be expected to do 2 jobs, no.
Okay, are we ready to call the question?
This is Mike, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Tim?
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, Board President, I 5-0.
I just want to thank the board for that, because now that you've done that, I'm going to sign this contract, which will allow that program to hopefully be available after the start of school on August 26th. And board, if we weren't able to do that, they, as I understand it, would have been delayed a week. So I really appreciate the board supporting them. Thank you for doing so.
You are welcome, and that is one of the unfortunate consequences of having to be very fluid in a very fluid environment. Are we ready to resume?
Yes.
Good. Okay. We're off to 45-day revision budget. Do I have a motion?
Kelly, so moved.
This is Brandon, I'll second.
Larry?
Thank you. I'm going to ask Ms. David to come forward, and she has a presentation she's put together for the board to explain the 45-day revise.
Okay, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity, trustees and Mr. King, to be able to bring to you yet another unusual action that we have in this year of the COVID-19. So if we can actually go to the next slide, you will see I put a gold star on our fiscal reporting schedule. The last action that we had related to budget was our board adoption of the 2021 budget. This is the first year in my experience, and for many, many years, that anybody in the state has had a 45-day revise of the budget. It is actually an expectation that districts would bring to their board and to the public a change that is significant. It's not required by law, but it's recommended when there are significant differences between the budget that was adopted at the end of June and the enacted budget. So this is something that we want to bring to the public and to the trustees' attention so that we can see where our changes occurred. Next slide, please. So what happened, and I want to thank School Services of California for providing this summary table that was presented to cabinet members throughout the state of California. If we look at the January budget in this table, it shows, if we look at the dark blue, medium blue, where it says statutory COLA, it shows that in January, before COVID-19, we were expecting a 2.29% COLA. By the time we had our May revision, we were expecting a 2.31% COLA, but it was unfunded, and they were also talking about additional cuts. So when we built our budget that actually was adopted by the board, it was using these assumptions, meaning that we built it in with an unfunded COLA and additional cuts. When the state actually enacted the budget, it has a 2.31% COLA, which basically is used for calculations in out years, but the COLA is not funded, meaning we do not have additional funding growth based on our cost of living adjustment. So the good news is that although it's not funded, we did not have additional cuts, and the state is using deferrals instead. And deferrals, using Popeye's cartoon, shows that, you know, the idea that, you know, we'll pay you for a hamburger on Tuesday for the hamburger we're going to have today. So we do have money promised, we just won't get it at the normal cycle that we get. Next slide, please. So this is, again, Compliments of School Services of California, which is the agency that helps translate information from the state budget into meaningful, useful data for school districts. This shows 5 deferrals. And as you can see, for example, in February, the money we're supposed to get will not come until November. So we have 5 deferrals. And what that is it's sort of like in our own budget where we may put off an expense so that it does not take down our actual cash reserves. So notice it says cash deferrals. So there is a difference between cash and budget. Budget is a plan, cash is what we actually have to spend, just like our home budget. Next slide, please. So this is where we actually see a bit of a difference. So in our revenue summary, the only change that we have, you can see in each of the rows, we have local control funding formula, federal, other state, other local, transfers, and our total. Where we do actually see a difference between the 45-day revised budget and adopted budget is in our local control funding formula, and that is because we are not having cuts, we're having deferrals. So that has a positive impact on our budget of approximately $780,000. Next slide. Actually, can we go back for 1 second? There was something that I would like to point out.
When you're through?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Okay, because there's so much here, and even in all of my acres, I've not seen this before. And if I wait to the end, I'll lose it. So
Sure.
On paper, there's no money, or there's more money because there's cut. The cuts did not occur.
Correct.
But the money, the cash isn't actually coming. So,
Correct.
Or it's coming in a deferred way.
Yes.
Assuming the state someday is able to pay that on Tuesday for the hamburger today. So does this, I mean, at the end of the day, does this mean to any district that, okay, although on paper your budget may not change, you better have fluidity and cash flow because you're going to probably have a cash flow problem?
Yes. You have stated it very eloquently because yes, that's exactly what it means. On paper, we will have almost $800,000 more when all the payments are paid.
Now, is it
so on paper?
Right, and I don't want to be a negative ninny, but you know, there's so much fluid, and nobody knows what the unemployment rate is on any given day because of the turmoil. Is there a possibility the state doesn't ever come through with it and they change it later, the deferral will happen later, or the deferral won't happen?
So, yes, you bring up, you've actually kind of gone ahead a little bit in the sense of what you're saying. No, actually, it's great because you bring up a very important point. On paper, yes, we have almost $800,000 more. And looking just at this slide, yes, we can say that at some point in time, we can project that we, in theory, will have $800,000 to the good for the district. But just like our home budget, sort of when you do your taxes and you get a tax return, you know that you have money coming, you just don't know when it's going to come. So we do know when it's coming, but as we'll see in a later slide, our district expenses are between $1.2 and $1.6 million per month. So we are getting our money later because of the cash deferrals, which means we need to have enough money to pay all of our expenses. So you're exactly correct. And the other thing that you brought up is that is there a chance that the state, depending what happens with the economy, could readjust the local control funding formula? Yes, because what you'll see in a later slide is we have slightly increased or a slight change in our 2019-2020 ending fund balance, and that's because they made a slight adjustment to the LCFF.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what I wanted to point out on this is, although it's not in this particular presentation because we just got notification on the second bullet, it does say that the district will be getting learning loss mitigation funds in the amount of one-time restricted funding for about $1.2 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's one time and it's very restricted, as we'll see in the next agenda item. So next slide, please. In our expenditure summary, what you will see is we have not included any changes in expenditures, which we will see at first interim. There are additional expenditures. For example, you just approved a expense of $125,000 for purchases of Chromebooks. So there will be expense adjustments. It's just because of the timing, we were not able to include those in this particular presentation, but did want to recognize the fact that we will be getting $800,000 because of the elimination of cuts. And so here's a summary of both our revenues and expenditures. As you can see, about $800,000 to the good in revenue. No change in expenditures. As I noted, a slight change in our beginning fund balance, slightly less because they adjusted the local control funding formula, but again, almost $800,000 to the good in our ending fund balance, although we have not included any additional expenditures from adopted budget. Next slide. So this is, of course, important, as you guys have heard me speak many times. Our budget is a plan for the year, but we also need to look at multiple years. So the good news is because we did not have the actual cuts, it puts us in a better position at our 45-day revise for our multiple years. So we are stable at this point in time. Again, we need to keep in mind declining enrollment, the ability to borrow for emergencies that we have, like now, as Mr. Fox pointed out, we have to have a reserve that will allow us to manage our cash. And our current reserve allows us to this. Other districts are doing layoffs and borrowing money, actually quite a lot of money. We're able to do what we need to do without borrowing because of our reserves.
I'm sorry to interrupt. That was going to be my question. I mean, we spent years trying to build up healthy reserves, and in fact, when we adopted the budget, we said, because June, everybody knew COVID was coming. So those healthy reserves are actually what's enabling us to survive the cash flow crunch without...
Absolutely.
Without...
Yes.
Because when you borrow, that costs money, so that's self-defeating in a way as well. Like putting things on a credit card, you pay the interest.
Yes, our current reserve level that's required is 4%, which is only about only about 2 weeks of operational expenses. And, so 4%, and we have $1.2 to $1.6 million in expenditures each month. So if you're looking at the number of cash deferrals we have, because of the amount of money we have, we are able to manage our cash without having to borrow.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. So most of these points you can look at, but again, we've already discussed the vast majority of them. Again, we have a better current year and multi-year projection based on the fact that we're doing deferrals rather than cuts. That is a benefit for all districts, but we are happy about that the state took that route rather than making the cuts. Again, we're very grateful that the board has been conservative in their spending and maintaining a better reserve than is absolutely necessary. And again, a note that our expenditures range from 1.2 to 1.6 million, and we are able to manage cash. So this is the information that we have to share. And the next time, and next slide, next budget presentation that we'll be bringing to you is first interim that will come in December. And again, just a reminder that we will be using those learning loss mitigation funds. We'll see the next agenda item, a little more specifics about that, because that does help us also save our general fund. So any questions that I can entertain, I'm happy to do.
I just have one.
Wrap up.
Oh, sorry.
Mike, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, if I may, I assumed you were going to go around the table.
Yes, starting with you.
Okay, thanks. So I just, I appreciate the fact that the cuts weren't there, and I appreciate the fact that on paper we're in a better place, but now is a time to be really, really careful, because frankly, and it's not like I'm painting the state as bad people, they're in crisis too, and it is not at least me, and I am not a budget expert at the state level by any stretch, but at least me, with all the uncertainty out there, it's not clear to me all that money's going to get to us. Even though on paper it's supposed to, it's just coming a little late. And so it makes me, so it makes me a little nervous. I think we have to proceed with caution. Clearly you're doing that. I am, I'm pleased that we're able to not spend money on interest in the short term, because
we do have enough in the bank to capture the changes to cash flow. But long term, I think we're not done hearing the end of budget discussions by any stretch as it relates to COVID impacts. Thank you for your work.
You're welcome.
Tim?
Lynn, great job on the work with you and your staff. Man, make sure that hamburger lasts a long time.
I'm trying.
That 790 that they said, oh, you're gonna get that, okay, yeah, well, like I'm with Mike, so I can't have any anticipation that that's gonna happen anytime soon, even though it's nice to know. But I think you have done an excellent job, and the presentation was clear, and budgets coming out of Sacramento are gonna be so fluid and changed, so we'll be waiting for the next shoe to drop, but you've done a good job. I'm pleased that the district's in such good shape. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kelly?
Yes, Lynn, thanks as always. You make this as simple for us to understand as possible, because this is complicated, and so, like Mike said, I don't think we're gonna, I think we're gonna hear some more about budget and see what really happens, and, you know, the check is in the mail, right? So thank you so much for your presentation, and I think we have more to come on what's gonna happen with ADA and all of this other stuff, so thanks for this, and we look forward to your next report.
Thank you.
I will say this, if you are somebody that's studying this, you might want to be very familiar with where your local revenue comes from in this district and any possible volatility there. I think if you watch the news at all and are engaged in local governments, you'll see even some of the most affluent cities in the region are expecting 20% budget reductions next year. I mean, you can't have Rodeo Drive shut down for 3 months and be thinking that everything is meant to be wonderful. And to Mike's point, yeah, it's on the book, but yeah, we need to tighten our belts and make sure that we're spending our money properly. Whoever is making sure that they're getting these extra funds and grants or whatever they are for this COVID-related stuff, I know that doing the documentation for that stuff is a pain. I know that they come back and want to question it later, and you spend as much time doing paperwork as you do trying to get the money, but thank you for everything you do without making a lot of noise about it, because it's harder than it looks. I know that to be the case. So we heard all of this about 45 days ago, so thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Do we call the question? Ford, call the question.
Mike, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, Board President, aye, 5-0. Let's go to item C, learning loss mitigation funds and application assurances. Do I have a motion?
Brandon, so moved.
Kelly, second.
Larry?
And I just have a clarification question for Ms. David. So then we have this on here, it's informational procedural. Should it be an action item?
No, it's actually okay to be informational procedural. I just wanted our trustees and the public to know that, as noted in our last presentation, we will be having approximately $1.2 million available to the district to address COVID-19 specifically. It can go back to our expenditures in March. So we're tracking our expenditures, and as trustees noted, I do want to take this opportunity to thank our secretaries, our principals, you know, our business office staff, our food service staff, everyone who's been dealing with COVID-19 for marking the expenditures specifically for COVID-19 as COVID-19, because we can transfer those expenses from our general fund to these funds. And so this really is procedural. I just want everyone to have the ability to review what the requirements are for us to accept and use these funds. I wanted the trustees to be aware of that and the public to be available of what's required in the acceptance and use of these funds. So it really is procedural.
Board members' comments?
I have no comments, thank you.
Okay, hearing nothing, I'm going to say that I'm a veteran of the municipality, and nothing is worse than seeing a pot of funds over here and someone not figuring that you can't use capital improvement project funds to pay payroll and things like that. So if you'd like us to take an action on that, where the board is recognizing that what these funds are meant for, what you can use them for, and most importantly, what you cannot. If you need that, we'll give that to you. Would you be comfortable with that?
I would be if you'd like to take the additional step. Yes, I would be, because as you can see on the agenda, it's very, very specific, and it's literally what it says, learning loss mitigation.
So we'll hold ourselves in a corner by calling the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Kelly, aye.
For the board members, board president, aye, 5-0. We know what we can't do with the money, Lynn.
Thank you.
Contract employee assistance services for education. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
This is Brandon, I'll second.
Discussion?
I want to share with the board, this is an excellent program. There are employee assistance programs that are available through our current joint powers authority with California Value Trust, which is our current JPA that helps provide our medical options to our employees. However, this specific employee assistance program, I've had it available and brought it to my prior district, but in the 2 prior districts earlier in my career, it was available. And it's a fantastic program. Just a quick example, CVT offers 6 confidential appointments that any employee in the district can make with a therapist, counselor. With ease, there's no limit. You can go beyond 6. With ease, you can have any issue in your family. So if you have a son or a daughter having a drug problem or an alcohol addiction problem, or you're going through a divorce, or you lost your job due to COVID or some other trigger, anything under the sun that you'd like to get support and help on, it's available to any of our employees. Additionally, I had the unfortunate circumstance of having a teacher that was fairly young pass away on staff when I was a school principal. We contacted EASE. They came into our school site. They set up shop. They're available for any employee to talk to. You provide subs for the day, and staff is available to talk to somebody who's a third party, no relation to the district, in a confidential manner. Those are just a couple of the things that the program provides. The cost is $10.20 per employee. The fiscal impact is approximately $15,000, I believe. And this is something that I highly recommend that the district renew each school year. It's an amazing program. So I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
Board?
Assuming you're starting with me, I have a question. So perhaps you said it and perhaps I missed it. Is this something new or a renewal of something we've had for our employees in the past?
This is a new program to this district, and it's offered by LA County. They work in conjunction with LA County Office of Education, and they've been around for 30 years or so, I believe.
Have we had a similar benefit, so to speak, for our employees in the past, and all this represents is a change of method of delivery?
We have had, I wouldn't call it completely apples to apples, but again, California Value Trust, which is our JPA, offers a employee assistance program. It's not as explicit, it's not as active, and it's not as rich as this particular program is.
Okay, and obviously, we just talked about the importance of being fiscally conservative. It is budgeted, Lynn. I mean, it says that, but
In this particular year, we can, because it's the first time, and we are actually adding the Slayer to be able to ensure that all of our employees, whether they have district insurance or not, so part-time and full-time, are able to access support related to COVID-19 so that they can do a good job for kids. We are able to use some of our learning loss mitigation funds to cover this year. If we continue in other years, we'll have to pay through general fund, but this year we can use the COVID-19. So
okay.
yes, budgeted.
I mean, that's good to know. That's legitimate. And, it's $15,000. I would not be penny wise and pound foolish and suggest that in the environment which our employees are working, that I would not for $15,000 be opposed to this. I mean, we have employees who have real challenges at home. This is something my employer does for me. And so I was just wondering, where's the money come from? And you've answered that. And we'll see that, especially this year. It seems like a worthwhile expenditure for me. It's gravy that it's partially offset because of COVID relationship. So that's all for me. Thank you. I support it.
Board, any more comments?
Is there any conflict with CBT providing this? Is there any conflict with what they provided, what this was going to provide?
No, Tim, there really isn't, because they're just two separate programs. One is by default is part of the CVT plan, and this one's offered separately as an outside contract.
I think I go along with Mike says this is important, particularly this year when there's so many challenges that we can't even begin to contemplate that are going on there with our employees at home and stuff, that this might be just something to have to help them do their job well. Thank you.
Any other board members?
This is Brandon. I just want to say thank you for looking into this and putting it forward. I think it's pivotal to support our employees, and this looks like a fantastic program.
Thank you.
Kelly?
I don't have any comments, but I definitely support this. Anything to help our employees.
Thank you.
I think progressive agencies now, instead of we wait for something to happen and set up a trauma center, it's okay to call and say, some of the comments I made earlier about, the parent groups supporting each other and different things. Sometimes it's okay to make a phone call to find out you're doing the right thing. So thank you. Call the question.
Mike, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, Board President, aye, 5-0. Moving on, future agenda items. There are 3 items on here: career development, science book adoption, research, health book. Does anybody have anything that they really need to add on to there? Hearing none, moving along. 13, the calendar. We have a regular board meeting scheduled for both August 27th, 2020 and September 10th, 2020. Is there anything that we see that could create a lack of quorum? Hearing nothing, moving on to report of closed session. There was nothing to report in closed session this evening. I have a motion for adjournment at 9:23.
This is Brandon, so moved.
This is Kelly, second.
Call the question.
Mike, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Kelly, aye.
Board 4, Board President, aye, 5-0. Board members, thank you for your great work tonight, staff as well, and the community that's out there watching us right now. Thank you for being there. This is a very important time to have your support.